Alright, so today I'm going to be doing a Whereisalex type beat as requested on Twitter. I did a Twitter poll and this man was voted on as the most desired type beat. So I usually do those votes every time I want to start a new kind of video. So go ahead and follow me on Twitter if you would like to vote for the next kind of producer. I kind of get suggestions out of the comments, and then I go ahead and post on Twitter some of the top suggested things, and you can actually vote and really decide who is going to be up next on there. But anyways, I did the chords as usual. I always start with the chords, and the strategy behind chords is just to be able to listen and by ear just kind of know what you want to hear next and just play within the scale until you get what you want. But here's the chord progression roughly. And the second part. And then I think I'm going to change that chord as well. Maybe something. Alright, anyways, I'm just kind of doing this by ear. I'm going to tweak this a little bit more. And then there's a second part. It's kind of going to be like the build up, I guess. But I'm going to go ahead and check the audio to see if everything is recording right. Make sure everything is sounding right in the video. So I've perfected the chord progression, and I kind of worked on it a little bit. But I'm kind of stuck right now, so I don't know what to do. I'm gonna call on Alex real quick.
What you're going to want to do is add a instance of serum.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that.
And you're going to want to create a bass.
Alright, so Alex just told me I need to create a bass, so that's what I'm going to do. As you can tell, I'm using serum. Specifically, we're going to create a low kind of saw bass, and it's going to be kind of filtered. So for that, I like starting with a detuned super saw. And it can be really detuned, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to turn on the volume because it's kind of loud most likely. And oh shit, I need to stop that notification thing. But I like adding a sub as well. And let me go ahead and bring it down, you know, like an octave or two. Actually, 1 octave should be enough. I don't know if you can even hear that shit. That's crazy. It's so quiet. I don't know how you even... It may be my headphones. I don't know. Okay, definitely needs to be just like that. I'm going to add a regular wave like that. I'm going to filter this. I don't like adding resonance to this kind of a sound. And obviously it's going to be mono. So I actually had a preset for this kind of a sound, but for some reason I lost it. Actually, when I transferred computers, it kind of got deleted. Alright, that's good. Now we're actually going to take this, and I'm going to create something using the notes that we have used in the chord progression. Bring it down a lot. Doesn't have to follow exactly. I'm gonna move it actually further back. And you know, this is all by ear, just manually, just kind of hearing out what I want and just being used to the intervals, and you'll be able to just create things from scratch like this. But yeah, as you can tell, D is like the root note of this. So when I'm making the bass line, I'm going to keep in mind that D is the root note, and the bass is always going to start with a D. So, and I can go up and down in the octaves. I can add a D that's a little bit higher. But that's the basic progression. I'm going to tweak this sound a little bit because there's so much you can do to make it more interesting and have more movement. And I actually had a preset. I wanted to make a seri preset bank, but when I switched computers, I forgot to transfer that over. So I'm going to go ahead and create the sound real quick off camera. So I ended up just doing a little bit of distortion and adding that to the sound. So if we do a A/B test, this is with the distortion, without, and then with, and I used a bandpass filter, kind of beefing up kind of the higher end, I guess. The bass is fine how it is, and I actually moved up the sub just one octave higher so it's more audible. And what this sound is doing basically is just filling up the lower end of this whole song. So with just the piano, it just sounds very empty, you know, and then the bass kind of fills up those lower notes. It's like adding lower notes in the piano. Like if I were to add a D down here, the bass is kind of doing the same thing as doing that. A lot of us struggle with some of our songs are too empty. Other people have trouble with having songs that are too complex and too crazy and don't make sense. But a lot of people always feel like they just don't know what to add, or their song is too empty. Just try filling out the range. So we have a bass sound, and then we have the chords, obviously. Now, something that you guys all want to hear from Whereisalex is how to do those wobble sounds, that wobble chord kind of thing. And what I hear a lot from Alex is a lot of saw kind of waves. Square and triangle, I guess. Every shape in sound design has like a different tone. This is a sine wave right here. That's a saw wave, and it's just the shape of each wave that makes this kind of tone for each one. That's a triangle one. So I hear that a lot in his stuff, is triangle waves. I hear square as well, which is like a very hard sine wave, I guess. That's some other type of wave. I don't know exactly what it's called, but they all have a basic sound to them, and then the rest is just editing the sound using filters and modulation and unison. But what I'm gonna go ahead and do is create that sound real quick. I'm not exactly sure. It's gonna take some experimenting, I guess. I'm not exactly sure of the exact technique, but I'm thinking maybe sine waves. They sound a little, triangle waves, because they sound a lot less harsh. And then a square wave. Let me select. That, and I'm actually gonna spread it out so it sounds softer. And I'm gonna blend it a little bit more and bring the level down. So it sounds like him, and I apologize for the volume right there. Very loud. Now the rest is filters. I want to actually brighten up this sound up in the higher end. So in terms of effects, I don't want to do distortion because it's going to make the sound clash a lot. When you add distortion, things get all crunchy and messed up when you do chords. The basic sound is basically done basically, so this is what it kind of sounds like. And what I did was I just kept the same layout. I turned on the volume of the noise, and I actually turned on noise, which is white noise. So let me go ahead and demonstrate what that sounds like. If I turn everything off, hopefully you guys can hear that. That's white noise. Turn it on so it's pretty low. Maybe at 30% would be good, so it's just barely there. And then I turn those on, and I actually, in the sub, which is just another oscillator, it just has less settings, I just put a square wave, so kind of fills that last part in. And no effects, nothing. And this is the basic sound that he will use in his wobbles, I guess, if you want to call it that. And sometimes he'll have actually saw waves instead of squares and triangles and all that. But if you want this hollow kind of sounds like a sine wave, I guess. It fits well with like 808s and bells and all that, and those kind of plucky sounds, I guess. It sounds very electronic. But what he likes to do is he actually likes to add a chorus, which will add that extra stereo, and it'll make it really pop. So as soon as I add a chorus, you can already hear the difference. Now, I don't like the rate to be too high. The amount can be like decently low, like in the middle, I guess. And then I'd bring down the high pass because we want to let as much as possible go through. So before, after. There's different modes and all that. You can really tweak this, but I think we have a good enough sound right now. So obviously we have everything laid out how we want to. This is going to be the intro, and we're just going to set the drop to be right here. And what I would add next is an 808. So he likes to use kind of fairly low 808s that don't take up too much range. So I'm going to go ahead and find one of those. And this is a pack that I actually recently made. It's on my website, and it has a ton of 808s in there. If I go to the library, we can just browse through it comes with the racks, and then if you're not using Ableton, you can also get the wave files. So let me go ahead and find where the pack is. It's called 808 Essentials, but it's the premium version. I already made one 808 Essentials pack, but it was like a free version, and he had just fairly basic 808s. This one has a lot of complex ones. So I want to find something. This kind of sounds like something that Whereisalex would use, I guess. Yeah, so cabinet. So since I'm using Ableton, I'm just gonna use the rack version. And as you can tell, I have all these parameters down here, and that's really loud. I can make it glide and stuff, and there's a lot of settings and stuff that I actually built into the rack, which is cool. Basically, I can hold this 808 forever if I just keep holding the notes, and I can glide it for as long as I want to. So it's very useful. So definitely check that out if you're interested in having like a bunch of 808 presets. You're never going to need 808s again with this pack. This thing has like 30. So, but I want to start with this kind of a 808 as soon as the drop hits, and it starts on a D note. So I came up with a simple idea for the LFO. Basically, I'm using LFO tool, which is a filter that I can control. It controls volume, and then it controls any type of filter. And right now I have a low pass filter, and I have it modulating the sound that we made earlier. So I'm going to turn off the sound, and this is basically what I have for the drop, like just the idea, I guess. So right now it's very loud, but when we turn on the LFO, you're gonna hear kind of that it gets a little bit quieter. So I just turned up the cutoff, so now this envelope right here is going to be modulating the cutoff. I can do this as well. And I like turning down the volume all the way so that it cuts off the volume as it gets higher up. But I liked how it sounded when this was up here. So as you can tell, I got a lot quieter. And right here I have the rate being modulated. Now for the rest of the song, I'm gonna have to come up with a creative way to incorporate this other instruments into this as well, because right now it's very basic, but this is kind of gonna be the background chords, I guess. Now I wanted to add some vocal chops because they're kind of gonna direct the melody of the whole song. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually pick out some acapellas and stuff or whatever and chop them up and come up with something cool with the vocals, and then I'm gonna be right back. Alright, so I made some progress with the vocal chops, and I just have a basic idea right now, and it may sound very rough and not polished because I haven't faded some of the edges and it's not perfect, but it's just an idea. And I added some French horns, which is basically a type of orchestral instrument, I guess. And kind of sounds like one of those hits that he'll use very often in his songs. And it's an Ableton pack, so it's not high quality like a contact instrument, but I use that so I can just get my my idea out more easily. And at the end of the day, it's gonna sound alright, and you don't have to wait for contact to load and browse through so many things. And then of course we have the wobble. I think I already went over that. I just kind of woke up right now, so my voice is gonna be kind of weird, but I'm just gonna play the idea. I muted the bass because that's not how I want it right now. My strategy is to just come up with the rhythm that you want, and then later you can move the notes up and down. You just start with the root note and you create the rhythm, and I'll activate that when I have more drums in there. But let's go ahead and listen to the drop idea. So pretty cool. I kind of want to change this or add more to the melody, to the chords and stuff that are at the intro and at the outro. A lot of changes have been made, and I always do that thing where I just get in a certain zone and I just keep working, and I don't want to record because it kind of gets me out of the zone. But I'm ready to go ahead and go over kind of the changes that I made. So I added some Rhodes. Rhodes piano, electric piano. And let me reposition my microphone. There's also a pluck that I created. Something very Alexy. Sounds very, very more like Alex. And I think it's cool. It's more of a lead instrument, like a melody, like I said, because we were lacking that. I haven't done any changes to the wobble, which I'm actually going to do on camera in a second. but I added some more to the horns, and I actually added a more aggressive horn right here. And it's from Ableton, so the quality is not as good as if I were to use Contact. And actually, one of the things I noticed right away is that there's no low end. So there's no low end on this sample. Like, what the fuck were they thinking? That's like, it's supposed to be like a low end instrument, but it has no low end. So unfortunately, okay, just bear with me with that. It still sounds okay, but it's not gonna sound as like full as something inside Alex's, because I'm not using like the same kind of quality. And of course I have the French horns. I'm not sure if this was here when I don't think it was here when I was recording last time. I'm gonna enable the 808 because that is actually something I'm gonna work on in a second. And I'm just gonna play what I have so far. It's gonna sound a little bit crazy, and it's gonna surprise some of you guys when certain things come in out of nowhere, because the transitions have not been there's not a good transition between the parts. But that's also a skill is that should be worked on its own, is being able to arrange. So everything fits in together. First you need the composition, then you need the arrangement, and then the mixing and the sound design. So the arrangement is going to come last, and hopefully I can make all this work and flow into each other. So yeah. A little bit of timing issues with the piano, I think. So that's basically the whole song right now so far. Definitely next is going to be the drums, and that's something I don't put in the videos often, so this time I'm going to try to include that, especially because drums are a very strong part of what makes Whereisalex sound the way that he does. And right now it may not even sound like him, but as soon as you start adding certain elements, it's going to sound alright. Anyways, I'm going to stop going on forever. I'm just going to get it start messing with the LFO. So like I said, this is a filter, and actually as I play this, the filter is actually going to move. And right now I have it controlling the cutoff all the way 100%, and then the volume 100% in the other direction, so it's cutting off the volume. So if I bring up the volume, so we can get really cool effects with that, or we can like start doing that kind of stuff and moving it around. A lot of stuff that you can do with LFO tool, it's cool. But even if you don't have this, I like to tell people that you can do everything using the effects. This is just a filter, and it's just it's basically just a filter. So you can do everything using built-in plugins. You don't have to invest in stuff all the time. But what I was thinking about doing is start automating the volume at the second part, just so it sounds cooler. Something like that. That's so cool. Like, holy shit. That's the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. Alright, let's go. So I'm kind of taking things my own direction. I really don't I try really hard to follow a certain, obviously I want to do a Whereisalex beat, but it's hard to find inspiration in somebody's idea, because I mean, sometimes people like to complain and say like, this doesn't sound like so and so, it sounds more like somebody else. I try hard to do a certain technique that stands out, and sometimes it'll go my own direction, because music is about being inspired. So and a lot of the songs that people make are just inspiration, like came out of nowhere. Like So I can't really predict and become Alex. You know, he could come up with something like this overnight, but you know, I try to. Okay, whatever. I'm gonna stop talking. This is stupid. And then right here, we're gonna duplicate the envelope. So a cool trick you can do is hit duplicate envelope, so you don't have to copy and paste and modify the notes and stuff. I like it better when it's just like this, and I'm actually gonna move this over somehow. You probably noticed, but there's a lot of pauses and silence in this song. The reason why is I'm gonna actually fill them up with drum fills and all kinds of drums and pauses and stuff, because that's something that will really that Alex, I noticed, uses that a lot more than a typical artist. Is he uses silence and tension, using silence to kind of make things hit a little bit harder. So silence is actually a really powerful tool. I already said that in a video that you can use when you're arranging stuff to really create emphasis. So let's listen real quick. I'm gonna modify this a little bit later so it sounds better, maybe bring up the piano and stuff. But next up, I wanted to get started on the bass, because right now it's very simple. I got the basic rhythm that I wanted, of course, but and maybe it won't even change that much, but now that we have the rhythm, we can modify the notes, do cool little things using the bass, make it sound more futuristic, like future kind of beats, kind of like selection, I guess. So I have this 808 right here. This came from my pack, like I said before, so it's already like cross-faded and stuff, and it has multiple samples in it, so it's already gonna be gliding and have all those parameters set up. I'm gonna do some cool stuff like that. I'm gonna actually do a lot of this 808 stuff off camera. Maybe change the 808, maybe use a different one. I use this because it sounds fundamentally like a Whereisalex 808, but there's also other options, and we can even add. I made this pack so that the sounds are all in one sampler, so there's no effects. It takes very little CPU, and we can add our own overdrive, our own saturation to even further the effect that we want, get an even better effect than what's already built in. So I'm gonna be right back. I want to go ahead and add my own kick to the beginning of this 808. I finished up the pattern how I wanted it to be and everything. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is bring it up to a drum rack, or at least to the level that I can see it next to my drum rack, and I'm gonna try to create my own kick pattern. And this will allow me to have more complexity in terms of drums, and I like to start with just the kick and the snare, then bring in the other elements later. And what we can do is we can actually turn up the attack on the 808 so that the kick is filtered out. And now you can tell it's softer, so that's with attack, and this is without it. So obviously we're going to be able to fit in a kick. It's kind of like side chaining in a way, because it's kind of delayed by a little bit, and when we have our kick in, it's going to automatically be delayed. But we can even further side chain it and actually have some volume modulation too, just so it has that cool effect. I'm gonna go ahead and look for like a kick. He usually uses like brighter kicks. These are those acapellas that I like to use. I have such a huge library. I think I'm looking for the noir sound or whatever it's called, or yeah, because they have that kind of style. And I don't know why my library is so quiet when I browse through it compared to the sounds. I feel like he uses a kick that sounds a little bit like that. So the medicine kick, I guess. And for some reason, okay, I think it's also because my volume's down. Usually the kicks are a little bit quiet. So if you want to make it way more louder, you got to turn up the volume down here. So
super louder. So whole like down here, so you have the volume. It just adds a whole like, I don't know what it does. It makes everything super louder. So it just really adds the whole. It just makes it sound very way more stronger. Have that.
All right, there we go. We got that Alex sound. Now what we can do is go ahead and sidechain. And I'm using a Live 8 compressor. I think I saw like some kind of tutorial on why it's better or something, and how it doesn't have any clipping noises or whatever when the sidechain is on really fast. And I went ahead and downloaded it. I don't think it makes much of a difference. And obviously the Ableton Live 9 compressor is at least as good as this one. So, but I just like how it visually looks, and I can actually see what's going on, like the ratio and all that. I think it's way better. And again, the side chaining is apparently there's no clipping when the attack is on really fast, or when the release is. I forgot which one, but don't really remember. All right, so as you can tell, the side chaining is taking effect. If I turn it all the way to negative infinity, you can clearly see what's going on. Now, I like to have like, I don't know, like 20 seconds, just a good amount. And I don't want it to be too obvious, but just enough to let that kick through. So as you can hear, it's just so clean with that kick. And then without the side chaining, there's a little bit of a difference. Now we can keep turning up the volume until it sounds just about right, until the bass isn't too bad, or too badly affected, I guess, or too strongly affected, I should say. Alright, now it's not enough. I think negative 20 is gonna, or negative 22. So let me go ahead and just fill out where all the 808s are real quick. Alright, so this second part has a different pattern right here. So kind of leaves some silence for the instruments, and then the 808 comes in later. So it really has that punch, that tension. Like I said, when you take silence and you use it to your advantage, you can really add some power to some of your songs. So a lot of people, I think, especially me as a beginner, we would just fill up as much range as possible. It would look like a full square. But as you can tell how I'm arranging stuff, there's cuts and there's silences and there's little things. So again, a whole song is separated into different frequencies, so we can take out the low end for a second, bring it in. Same thing with the drop. When you start cutting out the low end right before drop and then you bring it all in, you get a much harder effect. It's kind of an illusion, because in comparison to the part before, it's a lot stronger, if that makes any sense. Like, our brain is always like comparing how things sound, how different parts sound, and then when the bass comes in, it's gonna sound a lot stronger. So if you guys wanted to see like what the 808 pattern looks like, I'm gonna go ahead and holy shit. Hell no, got me sounding like fucking Trippy Turtle. You know, I don't know if you guys know that guy. He makes like this weird house shit where the kick goes really fast. Alright. There we go. We don't want no trippy turtle in this shit. Alright, anyways, the 808 pattern right here, this is how the glides are working. I don't show it that much, but really when you overlap notes and you have a legato turned on, which is actually a setting within the rack. If I go to filter, actually pitch, as you can tell it's on glide mode, and the time is affected by this macro right here, and it affects all the samples that I have. And this one only has one sample, but some of these have up to 3 samples that are controlling different octaves of the 808, but I felt like this one sounded better with just one, because you get that weird upper end. It's kind of like sounds very smooth. So very cool. Now we can even focus on making the pattern even better. So now the kick is on its own. It adds that rhythm, that flow. We can even cut off the 808 right here when the kick hits. So right now listen to this and then compare it to when I take out the 808 right there. Like again, silence, and just silence adds not only to the power of certain parts and to the emphasis, but it also adds a sense of rhythm. It emphasizes the rhythm of something. So right here we're just gonna cut the volume all the way. I believe that's the, holy shit, no, that's the attack. The volume is here. We're gonna cut the volume all the way down on that kick, and you're gonna hear it's gonna have a cool effect. Just cutting it off. Or what we can even do is have it pitch downwards, even better. We kind of get that effect right there, even with just the volume. I think the kick itself has a low end that makes it sound like it's pitching downwards. So I'm gonna cut the kick down a little bit so it's not overlapping too much, and have it fade out a little bit. And again, we're gonna turn the volume down right here. So every time the wobble comes in, I'm gonna cut the bass out, so it really adds to that emphasis. This one, maybe not, I don't know. And maybe we'll even bring in some volume at the end right here. Have something fade in, I guess. Let's say, okay, let's just add, let's add a higher note up here. So you hear that it kind of fades in because the volume's coming in right before, and it adds to like it gives it that upward pitch bending illusion without having to do too much work. So I don't really like how it sounds right here. So we're just gonna let that silence just not be there. And right when that horn hits, we're gonna turn it off right there. Cool. Now we need a drum. I mean a snare. I mean, we need a lot of things, so I'm confused. I'm just gonna lay out the drums real quick, and real quick, I already know that I'm gonna use this snare right here as the main snare, so I'm just gonna lay it out. I know he uses a ton of silence. Sometimes he won't even have the snare hit, which adds to the variation that you hear. So usually the snare always goes in the same place. In hip hop, in the same general places. So for hip hop, it's usually on the third quarter note. So 1, 2, 3, it's on the third one, and you're just gonna hear the rhythm. It's on the offbeat basically. And I think the reverb adds a nice effect. So usually I'll just cut out the reverb like this. But I like how the reverb adds to the silence, or emphasizes the drums, I guess. And I apologize, it's really, really loud. Alright, not much of a difference there. So second snare. Sounds kind of like Oshi, I guess. So really a nice effect right there. Just a offbeat snare, kind of like the drummers like just freestyling a little bit, you know. And we're just gonna continue that general trend of having that. So what I can do is have a snare roll right here. So lots of little snares. We can hit command and select a group of notes and drag a line, and it will do the velocities. Alright, there we go. I like that. Let's just copy and paste that. Alright, I'm gonna be right back when I have something else to add real quick. So right away I already know what I want to do. Sometimes you'll hear like his drums will just go crazy, and you know, you're just like, god damn, I don't know how to recreate that. Well, basically I think most of the time you can really get that same effect just by using drum loops. And right here, I know that I want something crazy, so what's the craziest genre I could think of? Drum and bass. So crazy stuff. And as you can hear, it's kind of fast. It's 161 BPM right there. It's labeled. But when I add it to my digital workspace, right now it's already pre-warped, but if you warp it yourself, you can put the BPM to 161. It's gonna match it to your tempo. So never limit yourself based on the tempo of a audio clip. Now what I can do is go ahead and add this to the drums. To the song, and if we go ahead and play, we get that kind of crazy effect that he'll do. And usually you'll add this kind of a thing at the end of a bar, or at the end of a whole selection of notes, I guess. At the end of a part, I mean. So you can do that kind of stuff, silence a bunch of things, especially the kick, even the bass if we want to. I don't think I'm gonna end up using this exact idea, but and obviously we're gonna choose a better sample, but that's kind of how the drum loops work, or the drum fills. I mean, it's called a fill when you do that. You can do that with all kinds of sounds, and it's just using silence as a tool, I guess. Just add some freestyling at the end of every part, you know. This is a big part of the Alex style, so the song wasn't really sounding too much like him, but I feel like when I'm done with these drums, it's gonna really pop, I guess. So as I'm adding more fills, little things are popping up. So one of the cool warp modes, this is why I love Ableton, is because of the warping. Like, I don't know how I would deal with FL Studio with audio, like how easy it is to just drop clips in and just really see them visually and just retime things. But basically one of the warp modes is beats, and I just changed the mode. By default it's gonna look like this. It's transient loop mode, so I'll change that to this mode, which is just every time a transient hits, which is a peak, every time it hits a peak, it's going to trigger an envelope. So what I'll do is shorten the envelope, so that means the sound is going to fade out faster. So this is one of the hits I wanted to add real quick. I'm just going to go ahead and demo it. So we listen to that, and that's with 100%. Now by default it's going to be like this mode. So right now it's taking up a lot of space in the spectrum, like there's a lot of frequencies being taken up by this. So what I can do is actually turn this down, and now everything's going to be cut a little bit shorter. Things are going to fade out faster. Alright, so I added a lot of different things. So in terms of drums, so all kinds of claps and snares and all kinds of sounds and percussion to the drop place, to the drum kind of arrangement. And I've actually added some stuff with Rhodes down here, and Rhodes are basically electric piano, type of electric piano. Sounds very nice. I used a contact instrument. Now I added this part right here because we already had this, but I added some chords. So let me go ahead and play it under the wobble effect that we have. So kind of the logic behind this is that Alex does a lot of gospel type of sounds, so I know there's going to be some haters in the comments down there. Go ahead and post your hate. No, I'm just kidding, but there's going to be some guys in the comments talking about how this doesn't sound like Alex. So I want to try and actually make this sound as much as I can like Alex. So what I did is I kind of added a jazz freestyle kind of bit at the end where I slightly go out of scale for certain notes, and that gives it that jazz tension, hopefully making it sound more like gospel, because my chord progression right now is only basic up and down, so I wanted to fix that. It's kind of hard to find inspiration through somebody else's ideas or somebody else's technique and how he likes to do things, so this is maybe not going to sound exactly like Alex, but I tried. Anyways, this is going to be the final product, and I'm going to mix this, I believe, maybe do a little bit of mastering, like turn up the volume. Now hopefully this was satisfying. Again, leave a like if you learned something, and leave a like if you enjoyed this or if you thought this was cool. Again, the 808 pack is going to be in the description. There's actually on my website, there's videos, YouTube videos showing off what's inside it and how to install it and stuff, and there's the price, and you can go check it out and see if you're interested there. It's really definitely cool, and like I said before, on my website there's videos demonstrating the pack, and it's a short video demonstrating it and then an installation video if you're buying it, and I definitely recommend you check it out. I spent a lot of time on it, and some people wanted to support by donating, so I figured I would offer something in exchange for donations, I guess. Something I learned from getting rid of a lot of plugins is that you don't really need that many plugins, but a lot of the time we install a lot of things because they have presets that we want. So having presets for the few plugins that you have is important, but also very equally as important to learn how to use all of the instruments that you have access to. So definitely check that out. I used to have like 3. I know how to make 808s and sub sounds, but I would always go back to the same 3 presets that I already had saved, so I figured I'd make a ton more. I made 30 and I released that for you guys. But again, if you learned something, leave a like, subscribe for more, leave your suggestions as well. I'm gonna do a Twitter poll after this hits, I think 200 likes, and I'm gonna post another suggestion. And in the meantime, I'm gonna put some other videos up. I'm gonna go ahead and mix this up and enjoy the final product.
Too cold.